This polynomial has 3 terms, so eventually I'm going to use the big X technique. But before you factor anything, you always want to look to see if there's something in common to all of the terms. And in this case, 5, 35, and 50 can all be divided by 5. So I'm going to begin by taking out the number 5. Okay, so if I take a 5 out, I'm going to put in parentheses what's left over. So if I take a 5 out of 5w squared, I'm going to have w to the second. If I take a 5 out of 35, 5 times 7 is 35, so that's going to be plus 7w. And then if I take a 5 out of 50, 50 divided by 5 is 10. So I'm going to have 10. All of the ones that you're going to face today, after you factored something out, the number in front of the variable squared is going to be 1. So we're going to be using the shorter version of the big X method. But let's go ahead and put in our big X here. So you just draw yourself an X. And eventually, let's just jot down what we know our final answer is going to end up looking like. The only way that I'm going to get back to w to the second power is if I multiply w times w. So I already know that what's in the front here is going to be w and w. We're using this X to help us figure out what should go here and here. All right, so the other thing that we have to remember this time is we took a 5 out front. So we need to make sure that we don't forget to bring that 5 down. So I'm going to take that 5 right there, and I'm going to put that in the front. Okay, so now we want to grab 1, and I'll go ahead and emphasize that. I'll just throw in a 1 here. My A is 1, my B is 7, and my C is 10. I want to multiply 1 times 10, A times C, and I get 10. And then the number in the middle is what we write at the bottom. That's my B value, so that's 7. And our goal is to think of 2 numbers that when we multiply them, we get 10. And when we add them together, we get 7. Eventually, it's not necessary to write that, but that's what our X means. We're thinking of numbers to multiply to get 10 and add up to 7. Now, you might be able to think of those 2 numbers very quickly, but if you can't, you're going to just brainstorm using the number up here. So I'm going to put a 10 over here and list all the factors of 10, all my factor pairs. So 1 multiplied by 10 is 10, and then 2 multiplied by 5 is 10, and then I don't have any other numbers that multiply together to get 10. So looking at those, what 2 numbers multiply together to get 10 but add up to 7? 2 and 5, okay? So I'm going to have 2 and 5. And so that means that this is plus 2 and plus 5. That is my final answer. If you want to double check that you did it correctly, I could FOIL these together. So front times front, W times W, just checking my work, is W squared. W times 5 is 5W. 2 times W is 2W. And 2 times 5 is 10. That's W squared plus 7W plus 10. But we still have multiplied by 5. So if I do 5 times W squared, I get 5W squared. 5 times 7W gets me back to 35W. And 5 times 10 gets me back to 50. So I know that I have factored it correctly. Okay, so let's go ahead and do one more here. If I want to factor this one, first thing we want to do is look to see if there's something in common to all of them. And so for 3, 33, and 72, there's going to be a 3 in common to all of those. So I'm going to take out a 3. And then that's going to leave me with u to the second power plus 11u plus, and then 72 divided by 3 is 24. Next, I'm going to worry about factoring what's in here. And so to do that, I'm going to draw myself an X. This one is about multiplication and this one is about addition. So the number in front of u squared is 1. So 1 times 24 is 24. The number in the middle is 11. And our goal is to think of two numbers that when you multiply them, you get 24, and when you add them, you get 11. So I'm going to come off to the side to do a little bit of brainstorming. You can use your calculator to make it go quicker if you want, but I'm starting with 1 times 24 as far apart as possible. Then you can grab your calculator and divide 24 by 2, and you get 12. Divide 24 by 3, and you get 8. Divide 24 by 4, and you get 6. Divide 24 by 5, and you get a decimal, so it's not a factor. And then I've met there at the 6, so I've listed all my pairs. So let's revisit what we're trying to think of. Two numbers that multiply to get 24, but add up to 11. So when you're looking at these pairs, it's a little bit easier to find which ones add up to 11. So what numbers add up to 11? 3 and 8. So 3 and 8. All right, so my final answer, let's not forget to bring down the 3 that we already took out. The only way I'm getting back to u squared is to multiply u times u. And then the numbers that go here and here are 3 and 8. So I have plus 3 and plus 8. Now this time I'm not going to check it, but if you FOILed this together and then took that answer and multiplied it by 3, you would get back to the original.